I'm reading actually from Luke. I'm not doing lectionary. I went off the reservation this week. I hope you can all bear with me. And it's from Luke 12, and it's part of verse 48, if anyone would like to follow along. From everyone to whom much has been given, much will be required. And from the one to whom much has been entrusted, even more will be demanded. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
All right, now I got a question for you before I start. Why does he go over there and read that each week? Is there a reason? Or is it just the way he does it? Just the way he does it?
Just a new tradition and decided.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I just remembered it. Now we're done. Okay. And here we are. Sermon time. Well, let's start with a prayer. Faithful God, may the words I speak ring true as they come forth. Fill my words with your Holy Spirit, gracious God, as I remember and remind myself and others of your faithfulness to each of us in this world. In the name of all that is holy, amen. Well, I start right out with there are hymns that remind us of how faithful God is, of how God is an intricate part of our lives, so intertwined that it is easy to take God for granted. It's just sometimes so easy to take God for granted. So when I hear a hymn that reminds me of how much God is involved in my life, it causes me to pause and reflect on my own faithfulness, my own part of the covenant that God has made with me, and I with God. You know, one such hymn is a favorite of mine. I was there to hear your morning cry. And it's by John Ylvisaker. I hope I pronounced that sort of right. It's in our black hymnals. It's on page 351. And I invite you to listen to just the first verse, the words of the first verse. I was there to hear your morning cry. I'll be there when you are old. I rejoice the day you were baptized, to see your life unfold. I was there when you were but a child, with a faith to suit you well. I'll be there in case you wander off and find where demons dwell. God, as we talked earlier, God is the faithful servant. God is with us in the brightest times and in the darkest times. God is with us. And as Cece pointed out, God has not stopped speaking. God is still talking. That's why the Bible is so important all these thousands of years later, because it's interpreted with each generation. God is with us. God is faithful. You know, faith is not so clear-cut for human beings, though. That's part of the problem. Faith is, it's got a process, you know. It's like, faith is not a thing that you have or you don't have. It's not an abstraction. It's ambiguous at best. And it's not a sure thing, a certainty. For example, look at Simon Peter, the trusted and loved disciple of Jesus. Before Jesus was betrayed in the garden, in Gethsemane, Jesus was talking to the disciples about serving, and he singled out Simon Peter. When Jesus told Simon Peter that Satan demands to have Simon Peter, and that Jesus, prayed that Simon Peter's faith may not fail, and that his faith would strengthen his brothers. Well, Simon Peter's response was a little bit hurt and kind of like, but Lord, I'm ready to go with you to prison and to death. Jesus knew better and said, I tell you, Peter, the cock will not crow this day until you have 3 times denied that you know me. We all know what happened. When the crisis hit and Jesus was arrested and tried, Simon Peter denied Jesus 3 times before the cock crowed. And when Simon Peter remembered the words of his Lord, he went out and he wept. Simon Peter may have denied Jesus 3 times. And yet it is the same person, the same Simon Peter, the same disciple who would become the foundation of the church, the rock on which we are built. God is amazing because God can look through all that bad stuff in our lives. all the bad stuff we've ever done, all the betrayals of others, of God, of ourselves. God sees through it all to the person that is made in God's image, the imago Dei, God's image. Peter, you, me, God sees the very best we can be. God sees the divine within us. Our faith may not be a certainty. It may be fragile. It may ebb and flow, but God's faith in us never wavers. God is always seeking us, and God is often revealed to us through people known and unknown. Our faith journeys are like walking the labyrinth. You know, like in Chartres, the big cathedral in Paris? Yes, on the floor. It's the one that goes, zigzagging around, and then it comes back. And what you do is you walk it, and then you walk to the centering space, the middle, and then you walk back out. We may walk beside someone on the path, and lots of people walk it at the same time. And then the labyrinth takes a path turn, and the person with whom we were walking is no longer there. They're no longer next to us. They're way over on the other side. God has a way of placing people beside us on our paths. Some will walk with us our whole lives. Others will touch our lives briefly. Others may touch our lives in a matter of a few hours. Because faith is experiential, we experience faith. We need to keep our eyes, the eyes of our hearts, open, and faith will show up. I'd like to tell you a personal story. I was on my way to Florida this past February when I began a conversation with my seatmate on the airplane. Now, the man told me he was a millwright who worked on nuclear reactors around the country. He is one that they call when there's a repair needed or if there's a tune-up required. So I found this gentleman fascinating. He was, I just never would have guessed that sitting next to him. As we continued to talk, somehow the topic of spirituality came up. He told me that he was very involved in the Native American spirituality and that, everything from, they do piercings, they do sweat lodge, they do dancing, they do sacred ceremonies. He was involved in all of it. He spoke of his life through the eyes of one who knew the holy and knows the holy, of how he had been saved by his Native American friend when his life was not going too well. Well, let's start with, he was drinking too much alcoholic. He was, his marriage failed, terrible, and he was concerned about his job because they were about ready to fire him. He was a mess. He was very open and honest about this. His friend kept him a month or two, sobering him up, gave him time to discern his path, make amends. And he had time to answer the most important question, the big question that was facing him. Do I want to live or do I want to die? God saw through the bad stuff in his life. God placed a friend on his path that could see the divine that is within each of us. He saw the divine in his friend. Wow. And both of us said the same thing at the same time. I go, amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. It saved a wretch like me. I once was lost and now am found. Was blind, but now I see. He lived those words. Many of you have lived those words at some point in your life. Make no mistake, this man knew that he'd been pulled from the very edge of the deepest, darkest abyss. God saw the man he would become, a man who would help others who needed a listening heart. A man who helps others who want to turn their lives around. This is where he spends his time when he's not off repairing or fixing up nuclear reactors, leaning on the Lord. This man has not hidden God's saving help within his heart. He doesn't keep it a secret that God helped him, no. He spoke of God's faithfulness and salvation, of God's steadfast love and God's faithfulness to him. And he told me, a stranger, on an airplane, headed to Florida for maybe a whole 2 hours. That's how long I knew him. I don't know the man's name, I haven't got a clue. I know he lives someplace near Dansville. Got me. Anyways, but I don't need to know this. He was placed on my path as I was struggling in February with the uncertainties of being newly retired, of being a grandmama, of growing older. Yes, I twisted my knee yesterday. Yep. This man gave me permission. That's really what he was talking about having permission to take the time to discern and listen to God speaking and calling my name. Yeah. He was but a brief passing on my faith journey labyrinth, and I thank God for placing me there. Faith is messy. There is no running from God. There is no hiding. God is always with us. Sometimes God's presence is really strongly evident. Other times we're going, God, where are you? God, how could this happen to me? What's going on, God? We hear it time and again in the Psalms. Faith is on again and off again, not once and not for all. It's the journey without maps or GPS. And we aren't certain where we're going, but we go anyways. We keep seeking and searching. We praise God not to celebrate our faith, but the faith that God has in each one of us, because we are God's own. It is through this faith, through this knowing that we are God's own, that we trust God with our lives. A final thought, or two. In chapter 15, verse 16 of John's Gospel, we hear the words, "You did not choose me, I chose you. It is with God's love that each of us is chosen." We live in a secular world that judges us by different standards. So I say to you, cling to your holy ground. Cling to the grounding that you can take a stand on and stand tall and stand proud for what you believe. There may come a time when others are trying to label you or exclude you or to dismiss you. Labels like, oh, too conservative, no, too liberal. No, too feminist, no, not feminist enough. Too democratic, no, too Republican. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I mean, people just start labeling, and they want this or this. Now, I can be a feminist, and I can be a Democrat, and I can be a nice person, too. I'm not a Democrat yet, but I'm getting there. I can still be, I can still love the world, yeah? In these times, remember who chose you. Whatever your beliefs are, remember who called you. You've been set apart, each and every one of you. Yeah. You are to use your life to reveal the grace of God. Reveal the grace of God to those around you in both the good times and the not so good times. You are the sacraments, each and every one of you. You are the bread of life. You are the cup of salvation. When you walk out this door, that is your job, to take those sacraments with you, to share them with those in the world. So keep your heart open to those you encounter, for this is what is required of you. Much has been given, and we know we have been blessed. But much is also expected. Yes, good and faithful servants of God, the one holy, gracious God. Amen.